All right, guys, so welcome to the Brooke Report. My name is David Brooke, and I am joined today by Keith Hathaway, who is one of our trusted closing attorneys in the real estate space. And Keith and I have known each other for a few years now, and we've worked together as many of our team agents enjoy Keith's office and his staff as they do an excellent job for our clients. I wanted to bring Keith on to talk about some of the biggest struggles and some of the biggest highlights that he sees in real estate agents and real estate teams, what makes them successful, and to talk a little bit through some of the best practices that he sees out there, what makes a really good real estate team, not just in the partnerships that I have with real estate agents, but as they form a transaction together, what makes having a good lender, a good attorney, a good inspector all together. So I'm thrilled to have you on the show, Keith. So thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure being here. I'm happy you invited me.
So first, let's start with your interest and experience in martial arts. We were just talking about that. So tell us a little bit about that. I saw that in the bio today.
I didn't expect that one to come up. As a young child, my mother introduced me to wrestling, first of course, through Hulk Hogan, who is a personal hero. Okay. Exactly. The 26-inch pythons. So, and then went into high school, started wrestling, and then I wanted to explore and try other things, and moved into Taekwondo, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA, and a couple other things.
That's sick. So, did you do MMA, personally? And
yeah, I did MMA personally, not competitively. I didn't have any matches or anything. I was just the guy that would go train with, fighters who would have matches and go fight professionally.
That's awesome, man. And that takes an incredible amount of discipline. I know my father, he raised me, and that was a very important part for the impact that he had on my life was martial arts. And so my father is a 5th degree black belt in Kenpo. Wow. And so he would take the time in order to walk through katas and show me, certain techniques or whatever, just for, just navigating that space. But I think the bigger part of that was discipline. That was his big thing that he wanted to impart to me. So I'm guessing that had a huge deal, because it sounds like you've done several different types of martial arts. Is that right?
I did. I wanted to try and see what each different type offered, kind of similar to my interest in what everyone else's job is. Right. I find it interesting to see how somebody else might do something similar, but put their own little twist on it.
Right. So the different martial arts leading to either defense or offense, and different types of techniques that can help you not master yourself, right? It's like mastering your mind and mastering your body and mastering the process of even interacting with the world around you. And so I think that's pretty cool. Also, you spent some time giving back and being a part of Boy Scouts of America, and that being a part, again, discipline there, it seems.
Yeah, my father's an Eagle Scout, my brother's an Eagle Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout.
Wow, that's cool.
And so as a child, I didn't think there was any other alternative.
Right.
So I just thought that's what you do.
Right.
Looking back at it, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful because of some of the experiences that I had that, quite frankly, gave a quieter, more timid child some confidence to say, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do martial arts. Maybe I can go to college. Maybe I can become a lawyer someday.
Yeah, I'm surprised by how much just even younger people getting into business, and a lot of times I talk to young entrepreneurs or young real estate agents, and they can feel like the time that they spent maybe in high school or college doing sports, doing whatever it was, Boy Scouts, learning how to work on cars with their father, whatever, that adds so much into your business life. And that's truly some of the foundational pieces to having a great business, because the business is actually a result of who you are. What happens in the private becomes public, and what you do internally for yourself as in the personal ends up in your business. And so I've seen people, maybe they dismiss those days of small beginnings, but that actually are the seeds to forming great habits for yourself. And those habits show up big time in the business. So for myself, I tell people all the time, the best thing I got out of high school or out of my school was doing cross country. And it was not because I was a great runner. I was probably the worst on the team by a long shot. I'm not built to be a runner. But what it did teach me was what I think is one of my, strongest characteristics, which is perseverance and the ability to say, no, I'm going to go an extra 500 feet. I don't need to try to think about like finishing this 10K or whatever. I just need to go another 500 feet. And I think that's kind of incorporated for myself. And I can see that in the way that you kind of interact with your clients. You have amazing steadiness about you when it comes to the real estate transaction. That's one of the reasons that I think many clients I've heard love to work with you and your team, is because there's this steadiness through the process that, who knows, maybe you learned in martial arts or giving back in Boy Scouts of America. I don't know. You can go into that a little bit more.
I would probably say, I look back to as a young child wrestling, and in the beginning, just like most athletes, I wasn't very good at it. I got pinned more times than I walked onto the mat, I think.
Right, yeah, sure.
So, and then eventually, somewhere in, I want to say, my junior year, I started to win a few. And I realized that if you stay the course, as you put it, people will often find that it's just that little bit of extra effort that makes 20 times more difference, and that will get you over the hurdle or over the hump or over the finish line, whatever your analogy is. That little bit of extra effort makes 10 times difference. So with that, I try to impart that into my own personal life as many ways as I can, and also in business. That little extra effort that a business person, whether or not they be a lawyer, a realtor, a contractor, or opening up a furniture shop.
Sure.
That little extra twist that they're going to give that sets them apart from the other person makes the difference. And it's often just a little bit of effort, maybe 5 or 10% more effort. You're still going to be putting in 90% of the effort. And unfortunately, some people stop at that and they say, I don't know if it's worth it.
Right.
Putting in that little extra effort distinguishes you from everybody else. And it also makes the people who you represent or the people you're taking care of in your business, it makes them feel that much more comfortable and confident in you, because it's that amount of effort that you're going to give. They see that, they appreciate it, and it makes them feel comfortable.
Sure. And I think that either being a part of, some sort of organization like Boy Scouts, or being a part of like mixed martial arts and doing that discipline and that almost like that consistency, that tenacity, that's pushing you personally for yourself to that next level, that allows you to bring that into business later on. And like you're saying, it gives you that slight edge that the others are kind of like, they're kind of hitting just at the bar, but you're like vastly exceeding it. That's why, for me, I really hone in on that demand excellence, because that refocuses me to a higher level for that. So I love that. That shows up in your work all the time. I had posted something, I think, for my team the other day, and it was like a penny a day doubled, by like the middle of the month is like only a few $1,000s, right? But if you wait till the end of the month, it's millions, right? And that's the attitude of that consistency, that time on the task. That's going to lead to some massive results that I see so many real estate agents, they kind of like give it that 9 months or maybe a year. And maybe if they hit some meteoric, rise, they feel great about it. But sometimes they're just like, oh my gosh, this is day in and day out. Like, I don't know what's going to make me successful through that. What have you seen, including consistency, that you have seen some of the top real estate agents? What are the habits that you see them like kind of developing for themselves?
One big habit I would probably say is staying in your lane. And this isn't to say not to try harder for your client in your lane and doing what you're doing.
Sure.
But we rely on the resources of inspectors, of lenders.
Yep.
Attorneys will rely on the realtors will rely on the attorneys. So I'm going to do this from the realtor perspective. So the realtors will be relying on all these other parties to do their jobs. And I know it comes from a good place where some realtors will say, let me get this document from you so that I can give it to your lender, or let me do this task that a lender would otherwise normally do and do it for them. It comes from a good place, and I know they're just trying to help, but two things are happening there. Number one, they're complicating the process by adding another variable that could go wrong.
Sure.
And number two is the time they're spending complicating the process and creating one additional variable that could go wrong is time they could have otherwise spent focusing on a task that only they can do.
Yeah.
I give the same advice to clients, actually. I'll always do the same thing every single time, because one of my key things that I tell agents to do is educate your clients up front.
Absolutely.
Set the expectations. Yep. And in doing so, I'll tell clients the one thing that you and only you can do is get documents to your mortgage lender. Your lender can do their job. Your inspector can do their job. Your attorney can do their job. And your realtor already has done their job. So with that, don't try to do theirs. Just focus on yours, and you'll get there faster with less stress.
It's incredible how many people miss that right up front. They're like constantly thinking for themselves, I need to be everything in this transaction for my client. There is maybe a slight edge that we just talked about, that person who's like hand-holding through the process and running around and getting docs. The difference is with that is, unfortunately, that does complicate the process. You're inserting yourself into so many other people's lanes that can create a mess in the transaction. So if I'm hearing you right, you're understanding that not only realtors, but some of the top people who you've seen work with stay in their lane.
Yep.
And they focus on that. Now, I probably should do a better job for the audience of whoever listens to this, a bunch of realtors, right? Small business owners, et cetera, to kind of like qualify you for this. You're a modest guy, but you do your office does some of the top numbers in the state of Connecticut for the amount of closings.
We've been very lucky.
Yeah, you do a great job. And so qualifying you for that. And then on top of it, you do work with some of the top real estate agents in the state of Connecticut. Some doing 90, 100 transactions. I know some of the people who you work with doing 200 transactions plus on a personal level. Mm-hmm. So you do work with some of those along with some of the top teams in Connecticut as well. So, just for those listening, this is not someone, who is just dealing with a couple of closings every week, right?
I appreciate that.
So that's massive. I would say the second thing that, you probably see are real estate agents, not only who stay in their own lane, but are focused on those top tasks that really only they can do. You kind of touched on that. What are some other habits that you see in top real estate agents?
Surrounding themselves with good people.
Okay.
I could not stress that more. Having a lender you trust, an attorney you trust, and an inspector you trust. As of 2010, you can't really pick appraisers anymore, so that's out of the equation. But having that lender, attorney, realtor, and inspector team is very important. Now, there's a couple of things that I think are very important in that team. I can break it up into two different qualifications.
Yeah, sure. Here.
Number one would be specialization. Focus on what you do. Now, what I'm referring to is a lender, for example, who is a lender/yoga instructor,
Yeah.
As the consumer, I would want a lender rather that did 5 loans a day, and that's all they've done every day for the last 20 years. Right. That's the person I want. Just like I don't want a proctologist that, one time tried brain surgery. I want the guy that does it every single day because I want my head to come out looking like it should. So having said that, focusing on what they are good at. Another thing, I'll use this example all the time with real estate attorneys, is you want the guy or gal who is a real estate attorney all day, every day, lives, eats, and breathes this like I do. And there's probably about 20 or 30 of us around the state that do the exact same thing. They're very qualified attorneys. They do a great job. You do not want the person who says, a lot of people are making money in real estate right now. Let me jump in and do a few closings because my criminal practice isn't working.
Right.
That might end you up in jail. Who knows? They might be looking at it wrong. So focusing on specializing on what you're doing, I think makes a huge impact for the consumer. Because just like you, David, you've been doing this a long time. Don't have as many gray hairs as I do, but probably about as many years in this. And you could probably predict things before they come up and head off problems that otherwise somebody would miss. And then next thing you know, that somebody, instead of spending 5 minutes heading off a problem, is spending 5 hours fixing it. And the consumer is not happy in the process.
Yeah, it's really interesting that in this business, you get to pick your team every single time, and you actually don't have to commit to that individual, any one of those individuals, ongoing. So for example, let's say we were, building a car and we worked at a car manufacturer. Every single time, that Jimmy puts on the doors and then Johnny's working on the engine with Steve and whatever that is, you don't get to choose that every single time you build that next car in the assembly. You don't get to choose. They're still the same guys who are a part of it. But in real estate, every new transaction, you can put a new attorney, a new lender, a new home inspector. You can put that all together. And the crazy thing is, it's about the same price to do it with, regardless, for every, like real estate. We obviously have some flex in our pricing, but it's all in the same range that the consumer is willing to pay. Why wouldn't you just put the best people all together every single time? But I see it that, sometimes business owners, homeowners, whatever it is, real estate agents, they feel an obligation to use someone who they're either related to or who they like or who buys them drinks or whatever it is, instead of looking at the process that's going to serve them best, right? It could be the best process for the consumer, but also the best experience for the real estate agent as well, right? It just makes their job easier.
Agreed. And the real estate agent, rather than going with the consumer's choice of their brothers, cousins, uncles from college who once did a closing or once did a mortgage loan, rather than that, going with somebody who specializes in it is going to serve both the consumer and the realtor at the same time, because it's going to be a smoother transaction. And I couldn't stress more that having this conversation with a client in the beginning is the most effective use of your time. Yeah. Educating them in the beginning. I'll always have an introductory call with every single client that I bring on, and I'll just...
Wait, so like you mean every client gets an intro call?
Yeah.
Like every one of them?
Everyone.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, right? It's like we're setting them up for success.
I want to, and quite frankly, it's also a selfish motive. I want the best for them. I want them to walk away from this transaction going, oh, it happened almost exactly as it should have. But, my realtor and my attorney and my lender told me up front that, hey, sometimes X happens. And when X happens, we're going to pivot. We're going to do this.
Exactly.
And you're going to be fine. But the problem that is created when somebody does not do that is that, let's just say, for example, and I'll bring this up later on at the end, but the closing doesn't happen on the date it's supposed to, which I'd have to say is 70% of the time.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. And I'll tell people up front that don't expect it to. Plan on a little bit of flexibility. That way, when it happens, you're not having a heart attack, having to reschedule work, having to reschedule movers, kids crying in the background, and having to extend your rate.
Isn't that wild? And I think the reason, it's like you have to ask the question, why doesn't a professional ever set that expectation of imperfection up front? Why? Because they feel like perhaps if the process isn't perfect, that's a reflection on me as a person, right? When the process itself is bound to have some slight flexibility, it's written as that. Like in our area of Connecticut, and you practice, your team covers the entire state of Connecticut, ours does as well, but for the most part, you do a lot more in certain areas like Fairfield, et cetera, where this is more time is of the essence, which is a phrase that we put into contracts, or you would put into contracts, which really clues the consumer, both the buyer and the seller, into a set time frame with default and damages associated with that. Our contracts where we primarily practice in the greater Hartford area, they don't have that written in, which essentially means that you're writing in flexibility into your contract with quote unquote reasonable times for things to be extended and not. I feel like when we don't serve the consumer and let them know up front that that's a possibility, you're trying to set yourself up for complete perfection in the process that items outside of their control or your own could happen.
There's
right?
way too many variables.
So many variables in the process. So I truly believe that setting that expectation up front is hyper important. For us, it's a buyer consultation that lasts somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour if you do it with the extent, like an extended version where you're really going over the market, all the expectations. And on the short end, it's at least 20 minutes to let them know, here's why we're bidding the way that we're bidding, right, in this seller market. Or here's why we're asking you to choose, hey, if there's a few lenders out there, here's the most reputable, here's some with the best rates who we found out, and here's the ones that are going to show up for you at 4:30 on a Friday and make it happen with their closer so that you can close on that house. And here's the attorney who's going to make it happen as well for you.
Yeah. People come with their own assumptions on how things work, or one of my favorites is they'll listen to the horror stories. Everyone loves to walk through the grocery store line, and then they see all these Us Weeklies and hear all these crazy stories, and then they see it so many times, they start to think that it's normal. These magazines are selling salaciousness. Same thing. everyone in the world is going to tell you their story about, oh my God, my closing was horrible and this went bad and that went bad. But you don't really find that the vast majority of them, call it 90% of them, when it does go smoothly, they don't have anything to talk about, so you don't hear about it. So what that does is that creates a consumer that comes into the process hearing all these negatives and thinking all these assumptions that a closing must happen exactly on time. And it's on us as advisors. I would put myself, the realtor, and the lender all in that advisory role and say, set these expectations. And also, one of the expectations should be flexibility. Don't be surprised. There's so many variables. Things do vary in time and date.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's not the end of the world. You're still going to be fine. You're still going to get into your house. You're still going to get your new house. You're still going to get rid of your old one. It's just going to take some patience.
So as advice to real estate agents getting started in this business, I know a lot of the newer agents will definitely listen to this. One of the things that I think that you're communicating right up front, some of the best real estate agents stay in their lane. They have consistency through their job. They pick some of the top teams that they can to people to align with, whether that's like a real estate team or lender, attorney, inspector, insurance, whatever that is, some of the top in the business. Anything else that you want to make sure some of the newer guys who listen to this, really understand?
Those honestly are the basics. What I would, teams in Connecticut are a new animal, or relatively new animal. I think it was maybe a decade ago, and you'd know this better when it actually started.
No, it was about a decade ago.
Was it a decade?
Yeah.
I like the idea of teams, and I especially like the idea.
Well, you're on this show, and I'm a team leader, so thanks for that.
No, I'll often pitch this to new agents that want to start. The same as a new attorney that wants to be a real estate lawyer.
Sure.
Maybe go to a real estate law firm and see what they do right, and also see the mistakes they made so you can not repeat them. Same thing. When you're new in the business, I like to recommend that people go and talk to as many agents as they can, as many teams and brokers as they can. And I do think it's a good idea for a year or so, at least, to be on a team, because you're going to get the experience of absorbing what, anywhere from 5 to, I don't know how many you have, maybe 40 plus now, on your team. You're going to get the experience of all those people, just those water cooler conversations of,
that's right.
Oh my God, Susie, did you hear this? And, oh, did you see what happened to Bill? Yeah, I'm not going to let that happen to mine. Or, hey, look how David resolved this. Man, I thought that client was going to have a heart attack, but he twisted it and solved the problem in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like that proximity of power, and that power in proximity is so important. I think when you're getting started as a brand new entrepreneur, especially a brand new real estate agent. So I think that's good. Some of the biggest screw ups that you've seen, right? What are some things that you see in real estate agents? You talked about a little bit about at the beginning. You were like the guys who don't stay in their lane, and add the variables. What are some things that you see in real estate agents that you're like, oh my gosh, that's some of the biggest mistakes you could possibly make in their career?
All right. I'm going to go back to managing expectations.
Yeah.
Not doing that. Absolutely. One of the biggest ones.
For sure.
Not letting a new buyer, and normally it's a first-time home buyer that's never been through this. And you could probably tell me how many times in somebody's life do they buy or sell a house?
Yeah, it's somewhere. They're buying a house right now, anywhere between every 10 years is roughly it. It lowered a little bit to around 7 years now.
Okay, so every 7 years. So somebody might buy or sell a property in adulthood maybe 5 or 6 times. They don't do it every day, and it changes from the time that they did it last time to now. Correct. So if you don't manage their expectations on how things are now, and they go back to hearing about how their grandfather did it 40 years ago, they're going to be really disappointed, and it's probably going to lead to problems. So communicating with them and setting the expectations, that would be paramount. Other than that, I have a couple of pet peeves. One is not leaving enough time for other people to do their jobs. I'll often have my introductory call with people, and I'll tell them that the most important job a buyer ever has, if they're using a mortgage company, is to get documents to that mortgage person. And I'll use stories and analogies and talk to them about other experiences that other clients have had. And I'll say, once or twice a month, I have a buyer calling me up yelling and screaming, going, why am I not closing on time? And then I get on the phone with the lender, ready to yell and scream at them, and only to have the lender say, yeah, I was waiting on his W-2s for 4 weeks. That's why we're not closing on time.
Right.
So then I have to call my buyer back and say, remember in that first call when I told you not to be that guy? You're that guy. And often I'll go through that entire story right there, and I'll get a little chuckle out of it. And then once in a while, I'll actually have to deliver that news to somebody, and they'll say, yeah, Keith, I know, I'm that guy. I'm sorry. And then that'll diffuse the entire situation. So not giving enough time for others to do their job. In that situation, the consumer didn't give the lender enough time to do their job. Similarly, final walkthroughs is the one for attorneys. So always a good idea. Always check, make sure that the house didn't burn down 2 days before closing, or the pipes didn't burst, which is happening right now in a cold season. So where people will go to the walkthrough 30 seconds before closing, and then they'll show up at the closing table to sign their paperwork. And in the middle of doing all their signing, everyone thinks everything's fine. They say, oh yeah, did you notice there was 3 windows all broken out in there? And then they'd say, what are you going to do to fix it? I don't really have a whole lot of time to do anything about it at that point. And it probably won't get you as good of a result as if you let me know 3 hours ago.
Right.
Because when you get right up to the line and a seller already sees that you're sitting at the table, they're staring across the table, looking at you, signing your paperwork, already patting yourself on the back and happy about your new home, they know you're not going to back out. You have no leverage. But if you tell the closing attorney, for example, 3 hours beforehand, the closing attorney will probably say something along the lines of, okay, sit tight, go grab a cup of coffee and some breakfast. I'm going to work on it with the other attorney, because the instant they see your butt in a chair, they know that you're buying the house and they don't need to give you anything. But if they don't see your butt in a chair, I have a good opportunity to get you some money.
That's nice, man. That's good stuff. That's all about expectation setting, and especially for new real estate agents getting started in this business. You've done a great job of already underlining and underscoring that. That is probably one of the most paramount things that real estate agents can do, and that the ones that hiccup all the time are the ones who are constantly trying to set these high bars in nearly impossible situations in the hopes of what? Trying to either look good in front of their client or satisfy the client's expectation on what should happen. But in any other normal business, it's going to be even if you go into a walk-in clinic right now, hey, I'd love to get a test, for COVID right now, or I'd love to do this. Sorry, man, we've got a 6-hour wait. There's nothing that they can do to try to make themselves look good. That's the process here. And even demanding excellence in that scenario is not altering the process. It's actually just fully explaining that for clients and for other professionals.
So, for example, to use your COVID test example, if they had called before and somebody had said, we have a 6-hour wait, would you like to get in line? That's going to be a little bit easier for the consumer to take. But if they don't know this up front, they're going to be standing there in some random clinic going,
exactly.
I got to wait 6 hours?
Exactly. And I think, that is probably some of the most important things that realtors can do is teaming up with someone who sets that example. One of the things that I love that you do when even just connecting is, hey, David told me that, you're a VIP. So I just wanted to make sure I personally reached out to you on that transaction. Such a good response at the beginning. You're setting the expectation. You're important to me, but also now that you're important to me, I'm gonna kind of almost as that older brother, give you that understanding. This is how this is gonna go. And I think when real estate agents and attorneys, lenders align on that process of all setting those expectations for the client way up front, they're having an amazing experience, right? For mine, I tell people all the time, if you don't mind me to set this experience for you right up front, I said this yesterday in an appointment, my goal is not to sell your house. My goal is to sell every house on this street and all your friends and family because you had such a great experience. And an older gentleman looks at me and goes, well, that's the reason you're here. You sold the house across the street 3 years ago and they're still talking about it, right?
If you don't set the expectations and then they're unhappy in the end, they're never going to refer you
exactly.
again. And we only get more business by doing an excellent job the last time.
Right. It's, I don't know who said this and someone could probably quote me, but the satisfied customer never talks about anything. That's what it was. I had the expectation. It was satisfied. It's the customer who has had a raving time, right? Because you set the expectation here, and then maybe you exceeded it. Those are the ones who go and tell everybody.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Anybody ever says, "Thank you, Keith, I appreciate this," I always say the same thing. Don't thank me. Go tell everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit. Again, real estate agents just getting into the business, they're going to want to watch this. They're going to want to listen through. One of the biggest things that I see realtors just constantly asking this question will be amazing, because we'll be able to cut this up into maybe a few reels or whatever and just send that out to them. I don't want it to be off topic in any way, but title insurance for people is just this confusing thing. They don't understand. The consumer doesn't understand it. And then they ask their realtor, they're like, hey, what's this charge for title insurance? Is this a one-time thing? Because they understand insurance to be, oh, this is ongoing. I constantly pay every single month for insurance. Can you give us a little glimpse into that? And then maybe we'll, end with, some other things that are happening in the industry with that. So yeah, do you want to go into, what is it? Why do I need it?
Absolutely. Title insurance. All right. For anybody listening or watching, take a sip of your coffee. This is not the sexiest stuff in the world. All right.
Maybe that's why we don't remember it. Yeah. We should add it. We should sex this up a little.
Exactly. Actually, I thought about this a lot because over the years, so many people have asked, what is title insurance? Why do I have to buy this? I don't see any benefit. Because title insurance is a lot like a knight in shining armor. All right. Imagine a knight in shining armor standing 8 feet tall in front of your house, all polished up, glistening in the sun. And that knight in shining armor is saying, my lady owns this property, and anybody comes to say otherwise, I'm going to defend her. That's what title insurance is saying. So it defends against somebody saying you don't own it at all, or it defends against somebody saying you don't own this little piece. Now, there's two types of title insurance. There's lender's title insurance and there's owner's title insurance. That's the easiest way to break it up. Lender's and title insurance, if you're getting a mortgage loan, you have no choice. You're buying it. The reason why is because every mortgage company and every bank in the entire country realizes how important it is when a situation does arise that you had title insurance. So going on to what it protects. One of the best examples I have is lot lines. So let's just say you think you're buying this box of a property and you got your beautiful new home in the middle. You have a deck on the side and you love it. The deck was one of the reasons why you bought the house, because all you want to do is sit out there on the weekends in the summer, have big barbecues, the kids in the back playing in the pool. That is your dream. You go, you buy the property. About a week later, when you're preparing your first barbecue, you bought the steaks, you filled up the pool, you mowed the lawn, everything is pristine. You get a letter in the mail saying, hey, listen, your deck is on my land. You need to take it down now. Now, every consumer, myself included, would say, whoa, I have to chop down my deck. I can't have my barbecue. This is going to be a mess. Do I need to cancel it? You tell your wife about it. Your wife's a little cranky, going, hey, why didn't anybody tell us about this? And it's a stressful situation. Now, you look back, and you're probably going to call your realtor first. That would be my guess. You're going to probably call your realtor and say, whoa, I just got this letter in the mail saying I don't own all this land. What happened? And then your realtor is going to do exactly what they should, which is call the attorney and say, hey, buddy, Hathaway, what's going on with this? My client just got this letter saying that she doesn't own this little part of the property, and they want her to take her deck down. So then I go up the ladder, and I call title insurance. I tell title insurance about the situation. Title insurance goes and starts researching it. Come to find out, maybe there was a mistake in title years back. Now, what title insurance does at that point is comes in and says, you know what? We gave you a policy on this. We're going to protect you. We're going to talk to that neighbor. We're going to negotiate with that neighbor, and we're going to make it so that your deck gets to stay there. You get to have your barbecue, kids running around the backyard, and you get to burn steaks.
Love it. So, but Keith, what's the probability that something's going to happen like that? Why do I need that?
It's not high. The probability varies with the issue. There's a lot of different issues. There's issues like maybe something wasn't foreclosed property 3 owners ago that went into foreclosure, or maybe somebody who passed away 40 years ago, the probate work wasn't done properly, or something was missed. Maybe, one grandson got left out of the probate process, and now that grandson's showing up looking for a piece. For all those reasons, title insurance would come in and protect. each one of those has different varying degrees of probability. Overall, if I were to combine all of them in their probability, now I'm not a title insurance rep, I'm just a closing attorney, but based upon thousands of closings, I would tell you it's in the low single digits for probability. You're looking at anywhere between like a 0.5% chance that something would happen to maybe 3 or 4% chance in my personal experience. So with that, it's unlikely. It's very unlikely.
But it's still necessary, especially if it's on the lender side.
Exactly. The lender's going to require it no matter what, because if it does happen, it's expensive.
You mean like litigation and
Exactly.
arbitration, et cetera.
And possible settlement. Sometimes the title insurance companies will resolve this just by settling and saying, hey, listen, we're going to buy this little strip of land from you so that our people get to keep their deck on there. We're going to give you $5,000 for that. Neighbor says, all right, that makes sense. You're going to help me move the fence too? Yep, we're going to take care of that for you. The dramatic situation is, somebody didn't properly do the probate years ago, so therefore they never properly gave it to the fourth person behind you, the third, the second, and you. So now they do have a valid right to say you don't own it anymore. What does title insurance do then? They come in and they say, hey, we're going to pay that person so that you get to stay in your house.
Wow. Sounds pretty necessary. How much does it cost? How does that figure it out?
It's a one-time thing. So I'm glad you brought up the thing about the comparison between owning car insurance or homeowners insurance, which you pay every month or every year. Title insurance is a one-time thing. One time, you only pay for it once. And the good news is it's pennies on the dollar compared to what you're purchasing for the property.
And it seems like it makes sense to be a one-time thing, because it's not just like, let's say it was, over the course and it's $20 a month or $40 a month or $80, whatever it is. If somebody only owned it for, a few months, right? But yet still during that time period, there was an issue. That's where it could really get a problem. Yeah,
exactly.
So I understand that. Talk to me a little bit about like how those costs are calculated, because, I have had consumers or real estate agents at the same time be like, I just don't understand. Like, it seems like a larger figure on the closing disclosure. How did they come up with that? Is there a board that decides that? Is it you personally? Is it the title insurance? How is that calculated?
Like a lot of other insurances, any insurance sold in the state of Connecticut is regulated by the insurance commissioner, the insurance commission by the state of Connecticut. And anytime somebody wants to go into business, they have to submit their rates for any insurance. Car insurance, title insurance, home insurance, whatever kind of insurance you want to talk about, to the state of Connecticut for approval. Just like any other market, everyone knows what the other players in the market are charging. Everyone knows what realtors and their competitor realtors or their competitor attorneys are charging for fees. So the market kind of levels out almost to where everyone is charging the exact amount. It does vary from time to time. Every once in a while, one title insurance company, and there's 5 or 6 main ones in Connecticut, one title insurance company will say, hey, insurance commissioner, we'd like to raise our rates by 10%, and has to submit it. The insurance commissioner has to approve it, and then they go ahead and do so. It's not often that they do this, though, because that opens up an opportunity for all of their competitors to say, insurance company A raised their rates by 10%. So all these consumers that you attorneys and you realtors recommend us to, they should start using B insurance company because they're 10% cheaper. Mm-hmm. Does that happen? Rarely. Most of the time, attorneys and agents will develop a relationship with a particular insurance company, and they'll stick with it. And they'll stick with it for more valid reasons like service or last time I had a client that needed the insurance company to jump in, that title insurance company was fast and they got it resolved and my client was happy. So this trickles down to you, the agent, to say, my attorney only refers reputable title insurance companies, so that in the event, the small likelihood that you would ever need it, it's going to be handled quickly and seamlessly.
Interesting. And then I have another question. Again, I hope it's all in this area of law, and yet we have clients who are relocating from across the country, and Brooke Group Real Estate is expanding, into several different states now. It's very exciting. We're running into clients often now who are saying, well, what's the difference? Because I'm normally in escrow. And yet you use an attorney. Like, what's the difference, and why does your state do attorney versus escrow? So if you could like describe for those real estate agents listening, maybe even a consumer who listens to this, why do we have attorneys representing us in this capacity rather than an escrow company in the state?
Very good question, and I'm actually glad you bring it up because I do see the same thing. I see a lot of people moving around the country in the last few years, a lot more, even amid the pandemic, a lot more than I did in the past.
That's right.
In-state, out-of-state, for a variety of reasons. Some people are fleeing the cities, and some people are moving down south for better weather, better tax environment, whatever the situation might be. So as a result, people coming from escrow companies will ask that question, wait, why do I need a lawyer? The lawyers in the Northeast basically do the same job that escrow companies do around the rest of the state. In the Northeast, once you're a lawyer and you get approved by a title insurance company to write title insurance policies, you can do closings. The rest of the country, these people, even though they don't go to law school, they do have to get a special license.
These are escrow agents.
Escrow agents, exactly.
Yep.
Escrow agents have to get a special license from whatever state they're in to say, hey, we'll allow you to be a settlement agent, to settle closing transactions, or otherwise known as close closing transactions. So they'll get that special license, and then they'll also then get approved by a title insurance company to write title insurance policies, of course, that every lender is going to require. And they have the two pieces they need to do a closing. In Connecticut, they don't give that special license. They say that only attorneys can do it for a variety of reasons that the state of Connecticut or the state of Massachusetts or other states in New England have chosen. Personally, I'm a fan of the idea of attorneys doing closings. It's not to say that any of those other people in other states aren't qualified and don't do a great job. I'm sure they do. But with the amount of money that's handled and the amount of volume of transactions that are taking place, I would rather have somebody with a large bond or a license to lose, a livelihood to lose, handling the transaction, because you want to make sure that the person doing this for you and handling all your money, they are responsible and are going to make sure that everything's done perfectly. And if they don't, they have a lot to lose.
I'll tell you, you certainly do that super well for our team and for our clients. So can't thank you enough for sharing a lot of your knowledge with us on the podcast here. So I want to thank you. What are some of the best ways that either someone listening who's a real estate agent and looking to really align with a great closing attorney and their team, what's a great way that they could contact you?
You can contact me at my office. I'm down in Hamden, 203-288-1333. Or better yet, email. I'm just Keith at gcghlaw.com. Probably the best thing I would say is bug David Brooke. All right. Nag the hell out of him. Say, who is that Hathaway guy? How do I get in touch with him?
That's awesome.
And whoever you use, though, I would love to have anyone's business. I love helping out people as much as I can, and I look at it from the perspective of I want everybody to be happy with the transaction, happy in their new homes. That's just as important to me as paying my bills. So whoever you choose, if it's me, it's somebody else, just make sure that they're actually a real estate attorney. You'll thank yourself later.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Dave.
See you.